It was Thanksgiving night, November 28th, a chilly Thursday in Los Angeles. My name is Nicole, and like many families across the city, we were gathered around the dining table, enjoying the warm glow of family and food. The smell of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie filled our house, blending with laughter and clinking dishes. My mom had outdone herself this year. Her stuffing was perfect, and even my picky little brother, Max, couldn't stop eating. Dad was telling one of his usual jokes mid-sentence when the loud knocking shattered the moment. It wasn't a polite knock, but heavy and urgent, rattling the front door. Everyone froze. We weren't expecting anyone. My dad frowned, setting down his fork. Mom whispered, "Who could that be at this hour?" "I'll get it," Dad said, pushing back his chair. My little brother Max watched wide-eyed from his spot next to me. I remember holding my breath as Dad walked toward the door. When he opened it, there stood an old man, bundled in a tattered coat. His face was gaunt, his cheeks hollow, and his gray beard was scraggly. He looked frail, like he hadn't eaten in days. "Please," the man said, his voice raspy and weak. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. I'm homeless and I don't know where else to go." My heart sank. He looked so pitiful standing there in the cold. Mom walked over to the door and glanced at Dad. They exchanged one of those silent looks parents have, the kind that says everything without words. "We can't just leave him out there," Mom said softly. Dad nodded reluctantly. "All right, come in," he told the man, stepping aside to let him into the warmth of our home. The man smiled faintly, almost sheepishly, and shuffled inside. He seemed harmless enough, just another unfortunate soul down on his luck. "Thank you," he muttered, glancing around our home as if he couldn't believe his eyes. Mom set a plate for him, and he sat at the table, hunched over like he didn't belong there. We all returned to our seats, though the atmosphere wasn't quite the same. I tried to eat, but I kept glancing at the man. His hands trembled as he shoveled food into his mouth, eating like he hadn't seen a meal in years. For a while, we just let him eat in silence. Then, far off in the distance, we heard it, a police siren. It wasn't unusual in Los Angeles, but something about the way the man stiffened caught my attention. His hands froze mid-air, and his whole demeanor changed. The faint smile he'd worn was gone, replaced by something darker. His eyes darted toward the front door. "What's wrong?" Mom asked cautiously. The man didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat, and before we knew it, he pulled out a gun. My blood ran cold. He pointed it at us, his voice low but commanding. "Nobody moves. Nobody opens that door." The room went silent. My dad raised his hand slowly, trying to stay calm. "Look, we don't want any trouble. Quiet," the man barked. His voice was different now, sharp, menacing. He wasn't the frail, helpless man we'd let in. This was someone dangerous. I sat frozen, my heart pounding so loudly I thought he might hear it. My mom grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing it tightly. I could feel her trembling. Max wasn't at the table anymore. He'd gone to the bathroom a few minutes before the man had shown his true colors. I didn't dare look toward the hallway, afraid the man might notice, but I hoped Max had the sense to stay hidden. The siren grew louder, closer. The man's eyes flickered toward the door again. He was growing more agitated, his grip on the gun tightening. "If anyone makes a sound," he growled, "I'll—" Before he could finish, a soft creak came from the hallway. My heart sank. Max, he must have moved, but I couldn't turn to see him. The man's head snapped toward the noise, and for a moment, I thought he was going to get up. Then we heard it, a faint click. The front door. Max must have managed to open it. The man's face twisted in fury, and he bolted toward the door. "No!" he yelled, but it was too late. As he yanked the door open, he froze. Standing there were 2 police officers, guns drawn. "Drop it!" one of them shouted. The man hesitated, his hand twitching as if he was deciding whether to shoot or run. But the officers didn't give him a chance. They moved in quickly, grabbing him and wrestling him to the ground. The gun clattered to the floor, out of his reach. The man let out a string of curses as they cuffed him. I finally exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath the whole time. Max peeked out from the hallway, his face pale but determined. One of the officers noticed him and gave him a reassuring nod. "Good job, kid," he said. It was only after the man was hauled outside that we learned the full story. One of the officers stayed behind to talk to us, his tone serious but kind. "You're lucky," he said. "This guy's been targeting families on Thanksgiving. He robbed a family a few streets down tonight and held them at gunpoint during dinner. They managed to call us after he left, and we've been tracking him since. The officer glanced toward Max, who was now clinging to Mom's side. "Your little brother probably saved all of you," he added. My hands were still shaking as I wrapped an arm around Max. "You're a hero," I whispered, and for once, he didn't argue or tease me. He just nodded. Later that night, after the police left and the house finally quieted down, we sat together in the living room, too shaken to return to the dining table. The leftovers went untouched. I kept thinking about how close we'd come to something terrible, how easily the night could have ended differently. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks. In 2019, my family decided to invite our new neighbor, Justin, to Thanksgiving dinner. Justin seemed like a kind man. He lived alone in the small house across the street. He had a friendly smile and always waved when he saw us. My mom thought it would be nice to include him in our holiday celebration, since he didn't seem to have any family nearby. Thanksgiving was cozy, with the smell of turkey filling the house. Justin arrived right on time, holding a small pie he had baked himself. He thanked my mom for inviting him and sat at the table with the rest of us, me, my little brother, my dad, and my mom. He didn't talk much at first, mostly listening while we shared stories and laughed. But as the evening went on, something felt strange. Justin started bringing up details about us that we hadn't shared with him. He mentioned my dad's work schedule and commented on my brother's habit of leaving his bike in the yard. He even knew the exact color of my mom's car, including the small scratch near the back tire. It wasn't just friendly neighbor talk. It was specific, like he had been paying close attention for a long time. We laughed it off, assuming maybe he'd just been observant. My mom didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable, so we didn't say anything about it. The dinner ended without incident, and Justin thanked us for a lovely evening. We watched him walk back to his house, disappearing into the darkness. A few days later, my mom was in the living room folding laundry when she noticed something odd. Justin was standing near his window, staring at our house. In his hands, he held a camera. He was pointing it straight at us. My mom froze, unsure of what to do. She closed the curtains quickly and called my dad, who was still at work. He told her to keep the doors locked and not to worry. It was probably nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Over the next week, we spotted Justin outside his house more often, always watching. Sometimes he would stand near his front porch and wave like everything was fine. Other times, he'd linger by the mailbox, looking toward our house. My dad brushed it off as Justin being lonely, but my mom seemed uneasy. She started double-checking the locks every night before going to bed. One night, when my dad was working late, my mom was home alone. It was stormy outside, with rain pounding against the windows. I was staying at a friend's house, and my brother was asleep upstairs. Our dog, Bendy, a little beagle with a loud bark, was lying near the fireplace. Suddenly, Bendy sprang up and started barking like crazy. He ran to the front door, growling and scratching at the wood. At first, my mom thought it was just the storm. But then she heard it, footsteps outside, slow and deliberate, crunching against the wet gravel. Her heart raced as she peeked through the curtains. Justin was standing in the garden, near the side of the house. His clothes were soaked from the rain, and in his hand, he was holding something. It was too dark to see what it was. Grabbing an umbrella, my mom decided to confront him. She opened the back door cautiously, letting Bendy rush out ahead of her. "Justin?" she called out over the sound of the rain. He didn't answer. Instead, he took a step closer, his face partially hidden by the shadows. Whatever he was holding in his hand glinted briefly in the dim light. Panic set in, and my mom ran back inside, slamming the door shut behind her. She locked it and leaned against it, her breath coming in short gasps. Justin started knocking on the door, softly at first, then harder. "Please," he called out, "I need your help. Let me in." My mom grabbed her phone and called the police, her hands shaking. She didn't dare move from the door, afraid he might try to force his way in. Bendy barked furiously from inside, his little paws scratching at the door. The knocking stopped suddenly, and everything went quiet except for the rain. Moments later, flashing blue lights illuminated the yard as the police arrived. They found Justin still standing in the garden, drenched and silent. In his hand was a small notebook filled with notes and sketches of our house. The police took him into custody, and for the first time that night, my mom felt like she could breathe again. A few days later, the police came back to our house to share what they had discovered. Justin had been watching our family for months. They found hundreds of photos of our house, taken at different times of the day. There were pictures of us in the yard, pictures of the windows, and even pictures of my brother riding his bike. His notebook was filled with details about our daily routines, like when my dad left for work and what time the lights went out at night. The worst part was that the police couldn't figure out his real intentions. There were no obvious plans written down, no threats, just an eerie collection of observations and photos. They said he might have been planning to break in, but they couldn't be sure. Justin never came back to his house. The police said he was being evaluated by professionals, but we didn't ask for more details. My mom insisted we get new locks and security cameras, and my dad agreed without hesitation. From that point on, we were more cautious. Curtains stayed closed, and we always made sure the doors were locked. Thanksgiving has always been my favorite holiday. It's the one time of year when our family comes together in our old farmhouse, a relic of the past sitting on acres of fields and surrounded by dense woods. The house belonged to my grandparents, who passed it down to my father. Every year we'd gather there to eat, laugh, and share stories. But last Thanksgiving, something happened. Something I still can't explain. The day started as usual. My parents, my younger brother Jason, my uncle Frank, and I arrived at the farmhouse around noon. The house looked the same as always, a sturdy but aging structure with its creaky wooden floors and faint smell of old wood. It was comforting in a way, nostalgic. The early part of the day was normal. My mom and Uncle Frank took over the kitchen while Jason and I ran around outside. The cold November air nipped at our faces as we played catch in the open field behind the house. I remember looking at the house, its windows catching the soft glow of the setting sun. For a moment, I thought I saw something in the upstairs window, just a flicker of movement. I brushed it off. It was probably the curtains swaying or a shadow from a tree. As evening fell, we all gathered in the dining room for the big Thanksgiving meal. The room was warm, lit by a chandelier that flickered occasionally, adding to the old-world charm. We laughed over stories of past holidays and stuffed ourselves with turkey, mashed potatoes, and pumpkin pie. But as the night wore on, I started to feel off. It was hard to explain, like the air in the house had grown heavier. It wasn't cold, exactly, but there was a chill that seemed to creep up from the floorboards. I noticed Jason kept glancing toward the hallway that led to the stairs. When I asked him if he was okay, he shrugged and mumbled something about hearing creaks. After dinner, we settled into the living room to watch a movie. My dad lit a fire in the old stone fireplace, and the flickering flames cast shadows across the walls. It was cozy, but that uneasy feeling lingered. The creaks Jason mentioned became more noticeable. Soft, rhythmic sounds like footsteps coming from the second floor. Probably the house settling, Uncle Frank said when I pointed it out. Around 10 p.m., Jason and I went upstairs to the room we always shared when we stayed over. It was a simple room with 2 twin beds and a small window overlooking the backyard. The moonlight streamed in, creating a pale glow on the wooden floor. We got ready for bed, but Jason was unusually quiet. After a while, he said, "Do you think there's someone in the house?" I laughed nervously. "What are you talking about?" He hesitated before saying, "I thought I saw someone standing by the barn earlier, but when I looked again, they were gone." I didn't want to scare him or myself, so I brushed it off. "Probably just your imagination. Let's get some sleep." But sleep didn't come easily. The wind outside howled, and the old farmhouse groaned as it always did, but there was something different that night. Around midnight, I was jolted awake by a sound, a loud thump, like something heavy falling upstairs. Jason was already sitting up in his bed, wide-eyed. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I nodded, my heart pounding. "Stay here. I'll go check." I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The hallway outside our room was dark and silent, but the uneasy feeling was back, stronger than before. I tiptoed toward the stairs leading to the attic. That's where the sound had come from. The attic door was slightly ajar, swaying gently as if it had been pushed open moments ago. I shined my flashlight up the narrow staircase. the beam catching the dusty wooden steps and cobwebs clinging to the low ceiling. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. No answer, just the wind whistling outside and the faint creak of the attic door. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking under my weight. When I reached the top, I pushed the door open wider and peered inside. The attic was cluttered with old furniture, boxes of forgotten belongings, and piles of blankets. Everything was still, but the air felt wrong, oppressive. I was about to turn around when I saw it. In the far corner of the attic, near an old rocking chair, stood a shadowy figure. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, or my eyes playing tricks on me. But then it moved. It wasn't walking, it was gliding, unnaturally smooth. The figure was tall and featureless, just a dark silhouette against the dim light filtering through the small attic window. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure stopped and turned toward me, though it had no face. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, like I was being pulled into a black hole. My legs refused to move, and for a moment, all I could do was stare. Then, without warning, the figure darted toward me. It didn't make a sound, but its sudden movement snapped me out of my paralysis. I turned and bolted down the stairs, nearly tripping over my own feet. Jason was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs, his face pale. "What happened? What did you see?" Just go downstairs," I yelled, pushing him toward the living room. By the time we got there, the rest of the family was awake, alarmed by the noise. I tried to explain what I'd seen, but I could tell they didn't believe me. My dad and Uncle Frank went to check the attic, but they found nothing. No shadowy figure, no sign anyone had been up there. We ended up staying in the living room for the rest of the night, too scared to go back upstairs. I didn't sleep at all, every creak and gust of wind making my heart race. The next morning, we packed up and left earlier than usual. As we drove away, I glanced back at the farmhouse. For a moment, I thought I saw something, or someone, standing in the upstairs window watching us leave. I haven't been back to the farmhouse since that night, and I don't think I ever will. Whatever I saw in that attic wasn't human, and the thought of it still gives me chills. Thanksgiving will never feel the same again.